What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and today we're going to be roasting some liars because it seems like a lot of game devs are already beginning to talk about their big projects of next year, and as we go into 2019, they're starting to say some stuff about their games that seems like it might be deceitful, deceptive, or flat out untrue. And personally, I hate that kind of stuff. Honesty to me is a very big deal. If you're going to try and sell me a product, I want you to be as crystal clear about every detail of it. I just want to know what it is, the way I can figure out if I want to buy it or if I want to avoid it. But sometimes it seems like they'll say one thing and then do another. Now what I'm talking about specifically is Ubisoft. Over the course of the last few months, and it seems like maybe the last 2 or 3 years, they started to try and shift themselves into a more always online focus. They want every single one of their projects to be online, even if you're playing by yourself. Now, why would they want to do this? Well, because Ubisoft themselves has actually admitted that they love microtransactions and actually see loot crates as a massive benefit to the games industry. Now, I bet that's a pretty shocking quote, but it's real. I mean, it 100% happened. They actually said that these are a positive benefit. Loot crates and microtransactions are a boon that help the industry when, in my opinion, this is flat out false. If anything, this just makes more predatory business practices. It leads to less cash being spent on experimental games. It's something that personally I am very, very against. But over the course of the last year, we've definitely seen Ubisoft trying to ramp this up. A lot of their projects are really trying to expand on the idea of the always online model. Look at something like For Honor or the big game Ghost Recon Wildlands. Now, I'll fully admit, neither of these games were truly spectacular to me. I thought they were cool, I thought the controls were nice, and I thought that in general the way you kind of just played them was fun, but they didn't really grab me. There weren't something I planned on playing more than like 50 hours each. And here's the thing, both of these had a giant drawback to them, which is that they were forced online. You could not play them by yourself. If you did not have an internet connection, you couldn't even play the single-player storyline of this. I mean, for Honor specifically, when I was having server issues, there were actually times specifically where I was trying to just storm a fort in a single-player story part, and then suddenly, when the servers went down, it kicked me out, making me redo an entire mission because they screwed up instead of me screwing up. And now, it seems like, if anything, Ubisoft likes that. They want to do more of that. In fact, just this week, they've specifically mentioned that they want the sequel to Beyond Good and Evil to be online only. There will be different sections of the game apparently that are more single player focused than multiplayer focused, but even when you're in these zones, you cannot unplug the internet. You need to be on the servers live, even if you're trying to do literally a single quest alone. This style of business model to me is something that I feel like is such a giant drawback for a bunch of reasons, but personally, one of the things that kind of annoys me the most is the fact that I know now that these games won't last forever. I mean, right now you see that I'm holding up a copy of Beyond Good and Evil. I can put this in my Xbox right now and still play it start to finish. It's still a spectacular experience. But when you make your games very heavily reliant on online servers, you're basically putting an expiration date on it, saying that eventually this is a game that will vanish. It's going to go up in a puff of smoke and everybody who loves it will eventually be disconnected from it. But along with that, I have a big issue with the fact that it's reducing functionality. I don't travel much. I'm a very just centered guy. I'm here in Texas, I hang out, I play games, I talk about them. But when I do travel, I actually like to be able to play things on the go. I'll take my Switch or my Game Boy or occasionally something like my Xbox One or PlayStation 4. And when I do that, it's because I want to be able to just plug in and have fun. With other Ubisoft games like Far Cry 5, it's completely possible to do that. This is a game that has online functionality and full co-op, but does not force it on you. It's actually possible to just play it all you want. I could play this by myself on a private island and enjoy every single hour, every single tower, every single piece of it, but That's not always possible when it comes to other Ubisoft games. And you know, part of the reason this annoys me so much when it comes to Beyond Good and Evil 2 is that the developers promised they wouldn't do this. Now comes to the real meat of this, and the thing that honestly really irks me. The developers of this were doing an interview last year talking about Beyond Good and Evil 2, its potential, and how they wanted the project to shape up. And they said the exact words, "We will not force you to play online." They said that. The developers, the directors, this wasn't a random programmer, this wasn't a guy who makes fluffy trees in the background. It was the main dudes talking about the fact that they were wanting to try and maximize the potential, and part of that is unrestricted play. Now, obviously that was a quote from 2017, but still, it's very aggravating to see a project go from, "We absolutely won't do this," to, "Hey, we're making it absolutely mandatory." What happened in that time period? To be quite frank, I believe that it's the Ubisoft heads that have stepped in to try and make this a more predatory business. They are probably going to try and put so many microtransactions, so many loot crates, so many cosmetic skins in this game because they know that somebody will pay for it. A tiny controversy that went around recently was involving the upcoming Ubisoft game Trials Rising. Now, even if you're not into racing games, these are actually really cool. They're really neat little trick games. I've played a lot of them. But when people were playing in the beta, they discovered that there was lots and lots of prompts asking for credit card information and the ability to purchase some sort of special coins to later on unlock all the different paint options. This is quite obviously something that is an extreme negative. The fact that you would be playing a racing game where everything is behind a paywall is something that you would expect in a garbage cell phone game and not a full-priced $60 console release. And I think that, even though that seemed so negative at the time, I believe that that was probably an early experiment by Ubisoft, them trying to see what they could get away with. Going into 2019, I fully believe that they're going to try and put everything they can as an online-only game, not to try and restrict us specifically, but to try and make it where they can implement more microtransactions. Everything they can sell, they will sell. Now, I know a lot of people lately have been hating on Far Cry New Dawn and saying that it looks like a lazy sequel, but to me, I'm actually pretty excited for it. I really have a soft spot for post-apocalyptic worlds and really bright, colorful schemes, and this combines both of them. But I am very worried that this will also be an online-only game, only to have it sell loot crates. It's not about trying to create new methods of play or experimental drop-in, drop-out multiplayer the way that freaking Watch Dogs had. This is only there to try and annoy you and drag the fun down. Ubisoft, let me just give you guys a special message because I feel like a lot of you people are probably just sitting around the holidays watching YouTube videos. We are not mad. Sometimes it just comes down to the fact that we want to make sure that the games will last as long as possible. I mean, seriously, for somebody like me who's a really hardcore retro gamer, I think that archiving, being able to make sure that something lasts as long as possible, is a very big deal. Right now, in the retro gaming community, we're beginning to face something called console rot, or cartridge rot, which is where these things have existed so long they're beginning to just literally chemically break down. If you're making your games more heavily reliant on servers, check-in times, and the reliability of people's internet connections, you're only going to degrade not only the long-time use of your game, but also its fan base. If you are trying to maximize profit, realize that it's going to have the drawback of seeing your fan base slope off. I mean, look at what happened with The Division. That game exploded in popularity at the start. People were jumping in, loving it, but as you tried to roll out new content and big patches and really high-priced DLC, people began to quit. And now, Division, despite the fact that it has grown into a pretty impressive game, is pretty much a ghost town. I think the only reason you guys are releasing The Division 2 is because you're trying to revitalize the fanbase and bring in new players. Making that an always online experience makes more sense, but still realize that you're paying a price. You are going to be losing players by forcing functionality. keep in mind that all we want is to play stuff as long as possible, get the most out of it as possible, and love it as much as possible. So please give it to us. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. And for those who are wondering, this is actually Survival Kids. This is actually one of the rarest Game Boy games in the world. It's really good too, by the way. Super cool. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.